Well, Australia's visa system is a very complex visa system and it's very comprehensive. By comprehensive I mean it has a wide range of visas to just about satisfy every situation, and because it has so many visas and so many interactions of different visas, it can be very complex. Okay, well that's a big question. There are a very broad range of visas available, from visas if you want to work in Australia, to visas if you want to study in Australia, if you want to start a business in Australia, if you want to live in Australia as part of a family group that are already in Australia. And there's also a range of special purpose visas such as medical treatment visas and of course refugee visas. So the range is very broad, and one of the tasks that a migrant has to face is deciding which visa is best for them. That depends. When you lodge a visa on shore, when you're actually in Australia, when the visa is lodged, you normally get a bridging visa, and that does allow you to stay in Australia while the visa is being processed. However, if you lodge the visa when you're overseas, you don't normally get a bridging visa. So the bridging visas can only be granted when you're in Australia when you lodge the visa. So if that's something you need to consider as a migrant, if you want to stay in Australia while it's being processed, you need to come to Australia on a valid visa, and the visa needs to be a prerequisite visa for the one you're going to apply for. So for example, you can come to Australia on a tourist visa if you're eligible, and then you can apply for a whole range of visas once you come here on a tourist visa. If you are unlucky enough or unfortunate enough to have a visa application refused, if you're in Australia when the application was lodged, generally you can lodge an appeal through the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, but it's not, you have to check on the circumstances of the refusal, the reasons for the refusal, and where you were at the time. So there's a lot of complex factors involved, but generally you can, if you're in Australia, you may be able to lodge an appeal with the Administrative Appeals Tribunal rather, the AAT. That takes a long time and it's quite expensive, but it is an option available for people who've had their visas refused. No, an applicant doesn't have to use a migration agent. They can do everything themselves. There's no necessity to use a migration agent, but depending on the type of visa they're applying for, sometimes I think it's a good idea to get professional advice, because as I said at the beginning, the visa system is very complex, and some visas are more complex than others, you know, they range from very easy visas, simple visas like Electronic Travel Authority and ETA, to business visas which can be very complex, and they probably would be well advised if you're applying for those visas to get professional advice. So it all depends. Well, that's a very big question. So there's a number of pathways to permanent residence. One pathway is to be sponsored by an employer. Either you can get a 482, a temporary employer-sponsored visa, and then you may be eligible to apply for a permanent visa, or you can apply for a permanent visa directly. You can apply for an independent permanent visa, either in a regional area or in a city area. There's a range of those sort of independent visas which don't require company sponsorship. There are family visas which allow you to stay here permanently. If you're married to or have a relationship with an Australian permanent resident or citizen. And there are a range of business visas and investor visas which allow you to stay here permanently as well, if you've got a lot of money to invest or you want to start your own business in Australia. So there's a number of ways you can stay here permanently, but the key thing for those people who want to do that is to plan ahead carefully and decide on the pathway they want to adopt and plan carefully the right steps to achieve that end result. And often to do that, you need to have professional advice.